Hi, welcome back. So we are in section 2 of Object-Oriented Comprehensive Guide in Python. Before we kick off to explore the outline of the section, there are a few things need to be set up. Let's go ahead and review that. Now, essentially, there are two options that you have, as I mentioned before, in order for you to follow along with the lab exercise that we intend to actually explore throughout the end of the course. The first option is to use a local development environment. The second is to use a cloud development environment. Both of them actually will lead you to the same exact result. But basically what differentiates both of them, that on the local development environment, it gives you ability to actually control a lot of tools and development operations and setup administrations, etc. These are good skills, though you don't have to do that. Alternatively, you could just use any of those cloud development environment, means just go online where you don't have to worry about any of the setup and how things work. Just reach out to the script and start writing your code. Basically, in this kind of situation, I'd prefer to use a local development environment. Give you just ability to have a quick understanding on setup and environment and administration stuff. Now, for our local development environment, in fact, there are only specific tools we intend to be working with. The first tool is to understand the installation of Visual Studio Code. It's the first IDE actually we're going to be working. The second one, of course, is to install Python interpreter, which is the main actual engine to interpret our code. Now, the last one, completely optional, is using this tool called Get. This tool, if you don't want, you might just completely discard it, but I inserted here for a purpose that I'm going to share in a while. So let's go ahead and actually explore one by one of the installation and setup environment. The first thing is to install actually is Visual Studio Code. So what you usually have to do, reach out to the Visual Studio official website, that is code.visualstudio.com. And once you are there, I don't want to show you what you are looking at. I think you should find out that yourself. The easiest way to go and just find where is the download for the latest version. This is an open source AI code editor. It's really, really good and powerful, and so many projects has been developed using this particular tool. I'm using Windows. That's why it's offering me download for Windows. If you are using any other operating system, I think the tool will be able to detect that operating system and suggest the right tool. And once you install, the second actually thing I advise you to do, just to head to the documentation here. There are really, really well documented tools and stuff, and you can look at them and just find out how you can go around and utilize every feature in this tool. So once your installation is done, you have just to launch the tool. Now you can adjust the screen, the color, etc. I'm not a big fan of this stuff unless actually I'm working with a team that they care too much about the makeup of the project. But basically I'm kind of old school on that, so I just want to get the job done in the right way, the most efficient and fast way. And I utilize the tool to understand the most important basic out of the feature that I need. At the left-hand side, what I like to head for is this extension option. So when I click here, it gives you an option to install some of those extensions, help you while you are making your development project. Since we are working with Python, there is a tool that I love to install, always called Python extension, which is actually an access point for Intel Sense. It's really good. Sometimes while you're writing your code, this tool, it can sense what is the completion of that. I love to use it. Besides that, I don't have any other things to do. But basically, of course, if I'm working on a specific project, I would have to go and create a specific folder for that project. And then from file, I can just open the folder where is the project that is located, and I start working from there. Which is going to do that in a while. But anyway, this is Visual Studio Code. Has been installed, just straightforward and direct. Now, the next thing we want to care about is the installation of Python, and Python is the main interpreter. So once again, what I do, just head to the main website of Python, and you can read all the documentation, available material. So go to the download here. Up to, the recording of this video, the latest version of Python happens to be 3.13.5. So you could see that we are in Python 3, and we are in the 13 update 0.5. So there's a constant update every time. Now, many people would admire just to go and install the latest stable version of Python. Nothing wrong with that. But the problem is actually here. If you are working on a certain project and you need to deal with some library, extension library. In this case, for example, from my personal experience, I work on a lot of projects concerned with artificial intelligence, machine learning. So sometimes we import those external libraries from other framework or other people who develop them. And those tools or those libraries actually had been developed on a specific Python version back then. Maybe they have developed in Python 12 or so, 3.12. In this case, if I would to run on Python 3.13 and connect to that particular library, I will have a conflict and error. So most of the time you have to look what kind of external library you want to import, go check which Python version they are working with, and based on that, make the right decision. Keep in mind, you can have multiple Python installed on your local PC. You don't have just to stick with one, which I'm going to show you in a while. So basically, in my own way of working, I might have 3 or 4 different Python versions, and I can just switch between them. Depends on the project that I want to work. For our purpose of this particular course and all the end, I think the best version I found that it can be really okay with every other library we might import. It was 3.12. I decided to install 3.12.10. I could have installed also 11. But anyway, it's still under 3.12. So there are some bugs fixing, etc. I think 3.12.10 is not that bad. So what you have to do, just download here, and then you will have Python installer. So once you install Python, you must make sure it is connected to your local environment. Now to verify that, if I would have to hit to my system here, and then I just go to my advanced system settings, all right, and I click on my environment variables that you see right here. If I go to path here and I click edit, I would see now Python, it is actually a local variable. It's an environmental variable, sorry. So as an environmental variable, what does that mean? It means if I would have to hit here to my CMD, and then I just can write Python, I will be able to actually directly be located to the Python shell to write Python code. Now, if I wouldn't have Python installed as an environmental variable, every time I would reach Python, I have then to reach out to the location of Python and then reach to the bin folder and then write Python. So this is going to be a really tedious thing to do. And also, in addition, you will face a problem while you are developing. So that's why we actually always emphasize to make sure Python is installed as actually an environmental variable. The next thing in our plan is to make sure there's cooperation between Python and Visual Studio Code. So if I hit back to my Visual Studio Code here and I go to something called View, and there's a command palette, or you can just hit Ctrl-Shift-P. You will get up with this particular list. You go to select interpreter option. Select interpreter option for Python. So if I click here, it's going to show me the installed versions of Python on this particular system. You could see there's some other version that I installed previously, but anyway, so basically I installed Python in a particular folder that I want to have control over. To go to my local PC, you could see that I created under this particular path a folder called Python, and inside here I installed this Python 12 that we just installed together. So I could have now another Python, maybe 3.12, 3.11, 3.13, as many Python as I want. So I would have multiple versions of Python. And once I want to work with Visual Code, I could choose which one I am interested. So this is all what we have to do so far in terms of linking everything all together. Now, the next thing is to talk about is to install Git. Once again, this is completely option. You don't have to do that, but I do for a purpose I'm going to show you in a while. So if I head to the official website of Git, I would see gitscm.com. What it is, it's just an open and free open source distributed version control system designed to handle everything from small to large project. Just in a nutshell, I will tell you, if you are working on a project and each one of your team is writing a simple piece of a script, and finally you want to aggregate all of them under the big picture, Git is the solution. And also from the name, you should suggest that it's related to GitHub. Once you install that, in fact, and you hit back to this option called source control, which you would like to link actually your project or the actual code you're writing to your GitHub, you would have to make sure Git is installed. So that's it. Actually, most of the features installed, and I could say that I have now a local environment. I can start developing directly any application I'm interested with. Now, the last thing we want to talk about is what's called a virtual environment. Once again, this is a style of working, and I prefer to follow these steps. So what is this virtual environment exactly is talking about? Now, I want you to imagine, as we have mentioned just now, while we're working, we install Python in a main environment, as a main environment. So if I hit back here to my main folder, I installed this Python. Now, this is called a Python and considered to be the base environment. If I have another 3.11, again, it's another base environment. Now, in order for you to understand the power meaning of virtual environment, you have to understand two existing scenarios when we talk about virtual environment. The first, are we talking virtual environment in terms of Python version, or are we talking in terms of project-wise? Here's what I mean. Sometimes you work on a certain project, and this project actually requires you to work with a specific Python version, just like I was saying before. For example, if I'm working in a particular project, it does not actually work well with 3.13. So I had to make sure I have 3.12. In this case, I would have one Python version working, one project work on 3.12, another work on 3.11, maybe another work on 3.13, etc. So each one of them has its own Python version. The second thing, or the second scenario when we talk about virtual environment, is a project-wise. Imagine you have a number of projects like project 1, project 2, project 3, and each one of them has its own external library that is needed. You need to make sure that each project has those installed libraries for them. Now, let us assume if I am not talking about virtual environment at all, this particular scenario for project, it means if I'm in project number 1, I go and I install all these external libraries directly on the base environment, right? And I go to the second project and install all it's requested on the base environment. So the base environment become collection as a dustbin, had all these libraries installed. That's okay, it will work. But there is a scenario here where the disaster might visit you. If you install one of libraries belong to this project, for example, and one of them is corrupt and affected the whole base environment, you know what will happen? Every other project will shut down because you actually faced a problem that one of these external libraries had a problem. This is a scenario where virtual environment give you a magnificent way of thinking. So basically what we do in a project-wise scenario, we consider each project has its own complete segregated environment. And that's why we call it a virtual. So basically as if you install completely segregated Python for this and for this and for this. So each one of them working completely in its own container libraries. Now, if I am installing and something goes wrong here, it just shut down for this particular environment. It does not affect the other because the base environment is clean and good. Now, given the other scenario, Python version, I want you to think from the same exact perspective. So basically, I could literally actually create a few or install a few base environment, actually 2 or 3 of them. And to work for any of the project, I would just go and create a virtual environment for this base. I still need to use virtual environment just to protect the base environment. So you could think from this scenario or from this scenario, is all up to you. Now, if you visit Python official documentation and search for creation of virtual environment, it has all the details how to do that. Simplest way, for example, if you are creating a virtual environment, you could head to the terminal and just write that Python -m argument and name the virtual environment whatever you want. And of course, where is the path? So I created here, for example, a Python lab folder and just select the folder. Now the folder is open. Inside the main folder, I could just start to create whatever the tree of my project looks like. You could see I installed virtual environment. I can have multiple of these virtual environment. As I mentioned, I could have maybe another virtual environment related to another Python version, or the same, but for a different project. So I have multiple options. It depends on the scenario I was talking about. Now, in order to activate this particular folder, what I can do, just reach out to the virtual environment, bin activate, and that's it. Now I am active on this virtual environment. Now, whatever I install here, it will be just installed within this virtual environment. So now it is the time to start talking about the outline in the second section. I'll see you then.